Welcome to Awkward Conversations. We are Seth and Sandra Dunn, and we come to you with these videos choosing things that are for some reason a bit awkward to talk about. So today, have you ever, I'm going to start with a question. Have you ever made a decision, set a goal, set a New Year's resolution, whatever you want to call it, only to get in it and discover, I can't do this?
Or, oops, I didn't do it. Not even I can't.
I don't really want to.
Oops, I didn't do it.
It really could be that, couldn't it? I mean, I just don't want to do it, or I don't have what it takes to do it. I didn't really evaluate this.
Or if you're like me,
I'm bored with it.
No. I forgot I was going to do that.
I just forgot it. And now I'm down the road, and
Now
for
it's
whatever reason,
3 weeks into January, well,
why
never
bother
mind.
now? I've already blown it, right? Okay, awkward, right? And it might be that it's awkward with somebody else, but oftentimes it's awkward internally, right? Okay. And I think to be serious about this, I think sometimes it really shakes our confidence then, right? If you set something that maybe you really did want, or you really do think culturally or other people want this for you, and then you feel like a failure, or you feel discouraged, or you're disappointed, or maybe you really did want it and now you're lacking, right? I mean, there could be lots of emotions going on with this. So we thought it would be good to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? What do you do at that point?
So
What's the
my
deal?
suggestion for today's title was, "You suck, now what?"
I don't know that that's a great title, but we feel that, don't we?
Well, all of us probably say that internally to ourselves.
I know.
And so
I know.
we set those goals, we have those
We
ideas,
do.
which also there's a big trend these days too. Instead of setting a goal or a New Year's resolution to say, okay, this is my word for the year, this is my path for growth for this year, or whatever. I really love choosing a song for the year. But so that has shifted a little bit, which is really good, because I think it does help.
There's a lot of good there.
When we feel like, we set a goal and we fail, and everybody does legitimately, usually within the first month.
When you're talking New Year's resolutions, you mean?
Yeah. That's difficult. And so I do think that trend is good. But I think still there's that feeling of like, oh, I was going to do this. And whether it's, I forgot, I couldn't, I didn't want to, I changed my mind, whatever.
Right.
Like whatever that thing is, then how do you deal with that?
Right.
And I think that's kind of what we want to talk about today is how do you deal with yourself when you feel like, in some people's terms, you would say, I failed. In other people's terms, you would say, that didn't go like I thought.
Yeah.
And
I think there's so many angles to this, because one of the things you might do is you might just say, you know what, I didn't really want that. Right? And be willing to admit that. And that's hard sometimes because there might be a lot of pressure from friends, from a spouse, from culture, whatever. Even among believers, in churches, there might be a lot of pressure that you should want it, but just admitting to yourself, you know what, I really don't want that. And that might be okay.
Yeah, and I'm not persuaded that way at all, as far as like what culture tells me I should want that, so that's a personality thing.
Yeah, it'd be an image thing, wouldn't it?
You might be persuaded that way where the culture says you should this, or you want this, or whatever.
Right.
But for me, it's more like I say I want this, and then I don't follow through.
Okay.
And
that's internal for you.
And then how do I deal with that? Like I could give you a list right now of things that I have wanted to do and have quote unquote failed. And again, I don't see it that way.
Right.
But
what do you experience in that process? I mean, I know that's a big question, probably it can vary, but what do you experience emotionally and so forth in that process?
Usually there's a realization of, oh, you forgot, or you haven't done that. You said you wanted to do that, but you haven't done it. So apparently you didn't want to. Okay. So what's going on? Did you actually want to?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or did you just like the idea? But there's this people who they really, really, really want to get married when the reality is they don't want to get married, they want a wedding. And that's why people spend thousands of dollars on weddings.
Yeah.
Because they want a wedding. It's not that they want a marriage.
Right.
And
Wow.
and I think it's that idea of like, I have this idea of I want this. Here's one. I wish I was hot.
Like,
I wish like physically my body was like, you know,
like warm or just crazy good looking?
crazy good looking.
Okay.
I wish I was in great shape. I wish I could walk around in.
Why do you wish? You are hot.
Please.
I'm the judge of that.
No. Here's the deal.
Yes, okay. Tell us the deal.
I could not wear what is very trendy these days and look good. If I showed up in half the things that is very trendy, you'd be like, you're going to wear that? No, because,
Okay.
so this is my example. I wish, and I always say, well, I'm going to do something about that. I'm going to get my body in shape. And I never do. And there's this internal argument with myself about why don't you? I hate the gym. Okay, stop it. Like if you want this, you have to do this.
Right.
Right? You can't complain about it if you're not willing to do something about it. Now, I do great most of the time. Do great with my diet, but I don't do the working out part as great.
Okay.
I'm working on that. I'm working on getting about it. But I just know so many times we say we want this, but we don't actually want to do the things to get that.
Right.
Therefore, you either have to recognize you don't actually want that,
Right.
or there's something else going on. So for me,
that's good.
that's my first thing is, do you actually want that? Because you say you do, but you're not willing to do what you need to get there.
Yeah.
So do you actually want that? And if you do, then what's the problem doing the things to get there?
Yeah.
Or if you don't want that, or you do want it still, but you're just not willing to do the work to get there.
Right.
Like being able to analyze that out. So that's kind of how I try to analyze out, okay, well, what is it you actually want? You say you want this. If you want that, you have to do, is that what you want?
Right.
Do you want to do those things?
You have just done two, I think, monumental things. First of all, that process of discovering what do I actually want, right? Because if you determine you really do want this, there's a better chance that you're willing to do what it takes to get there. But then you still have to take the next step and determine, this is what I want. Now, what's it going to take for me to get there? Once you've done that second step, you may decide you don't want it after all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you might have, I love what you've painted there, because there's a number of places in the Bible that describe this, but there's one that says, you know, the guy that decides to build the tower and does not count the cost before he starts, so he just starts in, and then he discovers he doesn't have enough money to build the tower, is a fool. Okay?
We've all seen those houses that are partially built and then nothing.
Right.
And you go, what happened?
So the same thing could apply to any area of our life, right? You count the cost.
Right.
Would be another way to say it. Determine, this is what I want. You know, come on. I mean, there's plenty of us. I would be one of them that would say, I want to make $1 million. Well, you can do it. I mean, particularly living in America. If you want to make $1 million, you can make $1 million. But you have to determine, then what's it going to take for me to get there? Those costs may or may not be worth it.
Right.
That lofty goal of $1 million may, if it means you lose your family, you lose your spouse, your kids hate you, well, gets the $1 million. And it can require that of people. Not always.
Now, if you have a terrible wife and terrible kids.
Well, then it might be a good way to get rid of them.
You know, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then go make your $1 million. You've set a new goal. I'm going to get rid of this wife.
I'm going to make loads of money, and in
these
the process, I'm going to lose this family.
Yeah, I mean, you've done the process, and you've set your goal.
If you feel that way, you probably should get some coaching or counseling. But
and read the Bible. There might be some things that'll help. Then again, anyway, we won't go any further into that.
But I also think the key, I think one of the things that I think is really important is, while you're in that process of recognizing, A, that's not really what you want. B, you don't actually want to do the work to get there. C, you feel like you failed. D, you feel like you suck. Like any
I
of
mean,
those
all the-
kinds of things.
Right.
The key is that you are kind to yourself in that process.
Yeah.
Now, bear with me. I know this is a very new, popular way of thinking. Love you, put yourself first. You can't give until you give it. Like, I hate all of those things because so many of them are based simply on your own selfish,
Yeah.
self-centered person.
Yeah.
They're not based on scripture. That being said, scripture does not intend for us to beat ourselves. There's a movie called
Right.
The Mission, and this guy is just
Oh, man.
so hard on himself and is like trying to pay penance, so he does all these things.
Crazy.
The movie's good.
It is a good movie.
But it's unfortunate because he harms himself in the process of trying to be good enough.
Yeah.
People do that at the gym trying to be
Oh,
good
man,
enough.
they do.
People do that losing their families trying to get enough money. People so the key is, I think, in the process, figuring out one, what you actually really want.
Right.
Two, what are the steps you're actually willing to take
Yes.
to do it?
Right.
You know, one of the things we talked about at Open Fields this year is instead of setting a goal, let's set some daily routines that we can do that are going to improve us in the long run. The idea of small hinges swing big doors.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
every day I'm going to list 3 things I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
Every day for 365 days.
Right.
Or I'm going to whatever.
Right.
Those I'm going to do these things every day. The process instead of the goal.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important. And then in the midst of that, when you fail, just notice you failed.
Right.
Instead of
Yeah. Wow. Say
killing
that
it.
again.
Just notice you failed. Just note that you didn't do it that
Yeah.
day and pick up and go the next day.
Yeah. That's so good, Sandra. Noticing it. And that there's such a compassion in that.
Yeah.
Right. And you should be hard enough on yourself to push through and to do the hard stuff.
But even
But love yourself in that process, right? By saying, give yourself that grace. Here, can I give a little example?
Yeah.
I decided, I've done this before, but not quite like what I'm going to describe. I decided I wanted to read through the Bible this year. So then I got to thinking, okay, I'm not a reader. I mean, I can read, but I'm not one of these that just avidly reads books. So I said to myself, okay, you want to read through the Bible this year. What does that look like? Well, the first thing I decided is I want to do it chronologically. So I've never done that before, I don't believe. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get a Bible or a reading plan that's lined out in chronological order. Okay, great. Now, am I going to actually read this, or am I also going to listen some days? And I told myself, listen, you're not going to do this if you have to every day read it physically. You're not going to do it. Now that may sound stupid to some of you, but I'm like, there's no way this goal is going to be accomplished I actually have to read. I'm not going to do it.
that's called knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And I knew
So
I wouldn't
make
do it.
goals according to who you are.
So what I did is I said to myself, okay, it's good to read. So certain days you're going to read, but you can also listen on certain days. That has been wonderful. I'm actually ahead of schedule.
Nice.
I'm actually well into February, and it's
that's cool.
February 1st as of this recording. So it's
Nice.
awesome to be ahead, right? And I'm enjoying it because, you sit down and read certain days and you get something, it's just different reading it. But then there's those days listening, like I listened through the book of Job already, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what a mess. That whole thing. And it's long.
It is.
I used to think, I guess I haven't read the book of Job for a while because who wants to? But but I thought, my goodness, this thing is lengthy and what a story. But it was interesting listening to some of it. So that's just knowing yourself and knowing I'm going to accomplish this goal, but I'm going to set myself up in a way that I'll actually do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I first learned that idea of just noticing. In a yoga class, and it was so good. Like she said, okay, wherever you have pain, just notice it. Don't, don't condemn yourself for it. Don't, just notice it. And I was like, that's a different approach. Because normally it's like, oh, I have a headache. I shouldn't have had sugar, or I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done that. Like where it's that condemning that voice. Yeah. And so really what we're saying is, okay, you may have failed. You may have forgotten, you may have messed up, you may have found out you don't really want what you thought you wanted when you set your New Year's goals or you have these ideas. So I want to encourage you, okay, just go, I didn't do that I thought I wanted to do. So
what gives?
That's fine to notice that. And then instead of going, oh, I suck. No, now instead of that, you go, okay, self, what's going on? What's behind that? What is it that you think you want? And are you willing to do the work? Or are you saying, I'm not ready for that, but I could do this. Maybe it's a smaller goal. So,
and you know,
that's important.
I think what we're doing here is there's a lot of training out there in goal setting and accomplishing things. We're really not talking about goal setting and accomplishing things, even though we've given some good practical pointers. What I want for you, and it's what I want for me, is I want life to just progressively move forward in healthy and good ways. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to mature. And in order to do that, new habits need formed, etc. Right. I want goodness in your life. I want it in my life. And I don't want you to be down on yourself or discouraged or just to give up. I don't want you to say, well, that didn't happen. Oh, well, move on. No, look at it. And maybe you can choose something simpler, or maybe you can adjust it or change it and get it somewhere where you can actually bring that thing into your life that you value and that you see as a good thing. That's really more what it's about. Good, healthy living, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
We want to encourage you. The growth is the important part, that you're continuing to grow, that you're continuing to find new ways to do things in such a way that is bringing life and goodness to you. That is the heart of the Father.
Absolutely,
Jesus came that you could have life and have it more abundantly. And the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So if we're going to have what Jesus came to give us, how do I do that? By choosing those steps, by choosing that growth.
That's good. And you've got the Holy Spirit to guide you and walk you through it and empower you. Amazing.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
So, if you're enjoying these awkward conversations and you're getting something from it, would you please share it with other people who might need it? This is the one time I'm going to tell you to just go and nudge somebody with it. Share, like, subscribe, ring the bell so that you get your notifications so that you can keep up. Okay? We love having you here and we love continuing to see you.